Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Samach Vav in Zbachim, as we learned for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah from the new parak. We start now the seventh parak of Zbachim. Chatas Ov She'asa Lamata. Now let's just review very quickly the differences between a chatas bird and an ola bird. There's only two kinds of birds that we bring, two different kinds of kabbanas: chatas bird and an ola bird. The chatas bird, you only snip one of the simonim, the trachea or the esophagus. One of them, not both of them. We had a sheet of Reb Lazar, Reb Shimon, who said you're allowed to do the second one also, because he says the way the Amoraim explained him, that there are other differences between the chatas and ola to differentiate them, so that it won't, even though if you do both simonim, it looks like an ola. But there's other differences that you can do that we discussed yesterday so that it won't be like an ola. Okay, but basically, here are the main differences. The chatas bird, you snip one simon, not two simonim. The ola bird, you do two simonim. The chatas bird, the dam is sprinkled below the chut hasikra. The ola bird, it's above the chut hasikra. Besides the fact that as a chatas, the bird is eaten by the kohanim, and an ola is totally burnt. That's the definition of chatas and ola. But I'm talking about differences here between the chatas and the ola bird. The malika could be done anywhere, but those made it. Now, also, there's another difference in the blood itself, not just where the blood is done, but in the ola bird, there's no sprinkling. The ola bird, you snip off the head, and both the head and the body, we learned in the Mishnah, have to be squeezed against the wall of the mizbeach, and the dam runs down, but there's no sprinkling. Whereas the chatas bird, you first sprinkle it, and then you do mitzui. Okay, so then there's a machlokas whether the mitzvah is ma'akav or not, but those are the main differences. Again, the chatas bird, one simon, the ola bird, two simonim. The chatas bird, the dam is below this chut hasikra, the ola bird is above the chut hasikra. The ola bird does not have a sprinkling, whereas the chatas does. Those are the main differences. Now, but as a chatas, we learn a chatas, if you bring a chatas shalol lishma, like we learned at the beginning of the mesechet, the whole thing is puzzle. It's no good. You throw it out. An ola bird that you do shalol lishma, the balam is not yotzei his chov. He doesn't fulfill his obligation, but the carbon is not puzzle. So here the Mishnah goes on to explain what happens when you do something wrong. You do an operation of a chatas on the ola, or you do an operation of the ola on the chatas bird. What happens? So he explains, says the Mishnah, chatas ov she'asa lamata. Remember, chatas bird you're supposed to do below the chut hasikra. Kamaisa chatas, you did it the proper way, one simon. L'shem chatas, with the right kavana. Kashever. Now, there's no chiddush in that. He's just setting the table for you to tell you this is the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to do the dam below. You're supposed to do the way the chatas is with one simon only, and properly l'shem chatas. You have to do it the right kavana. Of course, it's better not to have any kavana, as we saw at the beginning of the mesechet. That rather than mention a kavana, you might say the wrong thing. Okay, but that's the standard kosher thing. Kamaisa chatas l'shem. Let's say you did the chatas properly in terms of the operation, the procedure, one simon. Okay, and you even sprinkled the blood properly, right? But you did it l'shem ola. Now that's the l'shem ola means you did a shalol lishma. You did a chata shalol lishma. So in that case, or that's one case that would be puzzle. Kamaisa ola l'shem chatas, or kamaisa ola l'shem ola. Whether you did it properly in terms of the procedure, but you had a kavana of shalol lishma, or you did it like an ola, meaning you shechted both simonim together. Let's say without shehiyah, without waiting in between the two simonim, which we saw yesterday, and we're going to talk about that later on. That when a chatas bird, you have to first shech the first simon, and then you cut through the meat, through the flesh. That would mean that if you did the second simon, it would be with shehiyah. But in any case, you did it like an ola would be done. Let's say you did two simonim, even if you did l'shem chatas, but you did the procedure of an ola, or kamaisa l'shem, even worse. You did it with the procedure of an ola, l'shem ola. That's puzzle. Now, when it's l'shem ola, the first case, kamaisa chatas l'shem ola, or kamaisa ola l'shem ola, either way, if you did it l'shma, shalol l'shma, the whole thing is puzzle anyway.
All these instructions are for the Kohen.
Correct.
The cooling messes up.
That's right.
The guy that brought the birds.
Right.
He's the one that gets screwed. I mean,
That's right. Well, unless the Kohen would have to pay for it. If he did it on purpose, they'd have a whole procedure. They'd have to make it up. Yeah, but that is puzzle. Of these three that are puzzle, again, the first one is chata shem ola or ola shem ola. If you did a shalosh ma, it's puzzle. Chata shalosh ma, we learned at the beginning of Masech. The chatas or pesach shalosh ma is totally puzzle. The middle one is kamaisa ola shem chatas. You did it l'shma l'shem chatas, but you did the action of an ola. You cut two simanim. And maybe you only did, maybe besides the two simanim, you also possibly, in other words, this is where you deviated in the action of how you cut it. Also, maybe you deviated in the way you sprinkled the blood, because maybe you did a kamai solu without sprinkling. Remember, the chatas requires sprinkling before the squeezing, whereas the ola does not. In any case, those are all puzzle. Also, lamala kamai sakulim. Let's say you did it in the wrong spot. You remember, the difference is, do you cut one simanim or two simanim? Do you do sprinkling? And where do you sprinkle the blood, above or below? If you sprinkle the blood above, not the right way to do it. Chatas, remember, chatas animals above, ola animal below. The reverse when it comes to the birds. The chatas bird is below, the ola bird is above. So let's say we're talking about the chatas. The first part of this mission is talking about a chatas bird. So the asa lamala, if you did it, sprinkle the blood above the chatas sikr, not the right place. Kamaisa kula, no matter how you did it, whether you did it like an ola, you did it like a chatas, whatever you did, it's all psula. All those cases are puzzle. Okay, that's the first part of the mission that talks about a chatas bird that you did wrongly. Now we'll talk about the ola bird. Ola sa'of she'asa lamala, kamaisa ola l'shem ola kshera. That's your standard case. Again, no chiddush in that. It's just telling you that, setting the table to tell you these are the right ways to do it. Now we'll talk about the wrong ways. Again, an ola oaf, you did above the chutah sikra where you're supposed to sprinkle it there. Kamaisa ola, you cut the two simanim. Basically, you sever the head. L'shem ola, you did it for the purpose of the ola. That's kosher. Let's say you did kamaisa ola l'shem chatas. Now, if you did an ola l'shem chatas, does that automatically make it puzzle? It means, if you remember at the beginning Masech, the first Mishnah, all other kabbalas you did shalol lishma, besides chatas and pesach. Chatas and pesach lishma is puzzle. All other kabbalas shalol lishma. The carbon is kosher, except the balam is not yotzei. So here you did an ola l'shem chatas. Ola, I brought an ola, right? It says again, kamaisa, I did it properly. I did an ola, like an ola is supposed to be done, except my kavana was that is for a chatas. Kishera, it's kosher. It's kosher, meaning you can continue the process, which is burning it on the mizbeach. And possibly, since it's an ola, it would also have the operation of throwing the crop together with its feathers on the, take that long wiffle ball throw that we talked about. Except you're not yotzei. The balam is not yotzei, but the animal's kosher. Okay, that's all the animal's kosher. All these bones. In the first case, the animal's totally kosher. In the second case, since he did a shalol lishma, the animal's kosher, but the balam's not yotzei. Kamai sachatos l'shem ola. What happens if he's bringing an ola bird now? We're talking about an ola bird, and he had l'shma, the kavan l'shem shma, but he l'mai sachatos. What would that be? Either he only did one siman, or he sprinkled it in the wrong place. But here, assuming now we're talking about he did only one siman, or kamaisa chatos l'shem chatos, or even worse, he did ola. He brought l'shem chat. He did an ola l'shem chatos, and he did the maisa of a chatos psula. If he did an ola l'shem chatos, but he did everything properly, right? We said kamaisa ola l'shem chatos, it's kosher, but the bomb's not yotzei. But if he did it the maisa of a chatos, not just shalol lishma, he said kamaisa chatos l'shem ola, or kamaisa chatos l'shem chatos, even worse. That's puzzle, because he didn't do it the right way. And ola you have to cut two simanim, sever two simanim, chatas one siman. So here this is an ola, he brought it like a chatas, only one siman, that's puzzle. Or asalamata, or if he did everything kosher, except he sprinkled the brine in the wrong spot, kulam sulam, then they're all puzzle. Okay, that's what the Mishnah gives us the general rules. Now, in the first case, where we said, and they talk about the chatas ha'of. The chatas ha'of, right? The of chatas, right? So we said that kamaisa ola, right? If you did a kamaisa chatas l'shem ola, that's puzzle, because he did a shol shma. What about kamaisa ola l'shem chatas or kamaisa ola l'shem ola? If you did the chatas, you did the chatas like an ola. In what sense? Like you did it in what sense? What was the thing that you deviated from? Says the Gemara, and I'm at base now. The shani b'mai, this chatas, which you're supposed to do one simon, and you did two. What did you deviate with? Was it you deviated in the severing, in the shchita, in the malika? Elam at the shani b'malika, you changed the malika. In other words, since it's a chatas only supposed to do one simon, and you did two, so name it Rabbi Elazar Shimon. So this comes out not like Rabbi Elazar Shimon. The Amar Shamati, we had this yesterday. Rabbi Elazar Shimon said, Shamati Shemavdil Mechatas Ha'of. Rabbi Elazar Shimon said, Achatas Ha'of, if you choose to, an Ola bird, you have to do Simonim. You have to do two Simonim. A Chatas bird, you're supposed to do one. If you did two, that's okay. That's okay. So if we're saying over here that that's puzzle, that you did what? You did Kamaisa Ola L'Shem Chatas, that you did the Maisa of an Ola. What was the Maisa? You cut two Simonim, and that's why it's puzzle. According to Rabbi Elazar Shimon, that's still okay. So if that's the case, name it Rabbi Elazar Shimon. So why would it be puzzle? Says the Gemara below, Kimna Rabbi Elazar Shimon. We already explained on yesterday's daf, which explained in the previous parak, the previous Mishnah, that the Mishnah didn't go like Rabbi Elazar Shimon. The Mishnah back on Samach Dal and Beis that explained Ola in general, it said if you did two simanim by a chatos or one simon by an Ola, that's puzzle. So we already explained that this whole series of Mishnayos doesn't go like Rabbi Elazar Shimon, right? So we already explained it. It says, look, you don't have to say that it goes not like Rabbi Elazar Shimon, but rather, right? The Mishnah says that if you did two simanim instead of one simon that on a chatos, that it's no good. It's not to say that it doesn't go like Rabbi Shimon. That we already know already. We're explaining over here that you changed it in a way that even according to Rabbanan, it wouldn't be good. The shani bahazah, you changed it, you deviated in the hazah. What do we mean by that? Says Rashi in the second of the narrow lines, Shlo hisa elamitza, shamitzu hi avodas ola. As we explained before, that again, what are the differences between chatas and ola bird? One is it's chatas one siman, ola is two simanim. Another difference is where do you sprinkle the blood, above or below? Another difference is that by Ola, there is no sprinkling. It's only Mitsui. So over here, by a Chatas, the Chatas bird, that we say, you did it the way an Ola, you followed the procedure of an Ola. In what sense? Are we talking about that you did two Simonim instead of one? Well, and that's why it's no good? Well, we already explained that part doesn't go like Rabbi Elazar Shimon. That's not the Chesh. No, we're trying to say maybe you changed the method of the sprinkling. How so? That if you did a chatas bird, which is supposed to be sprinkled and then squeezed against the wall, and all you did was squeezing, that means you did it like an ola. You didn't sprinkling. The Shani Bazah said, Rashi, Shalohiza, you didn't sprinkle elamitza, you just squeezed or drained it out on the wall. Shamitza, you have what is that how you did it? So that's what you changed. You did a chatas bird with the procedure of an ola, and that's why it's puzzle. It's mustaver that we're speaking about. You change the method, the procedure of the sprinkling. The Sefer says also lamala kamaisa kulan. The end of the again, the Sefer here doesn't mean the end of the Mishnah. It means the end of the discussion about the chatzah, because it says if you did it above the chutah sikr, which is not the way you do a chatzah, it is the way you do an ola. Psula v'afilu kamaisa chatzah sheshem chatzah. Even if you did one simon, and you did it with a shema chatas, right? But if you did it above the chutah sikr, the dam is no good. The shani b'mai, the shani b'malika. What do you mean you did it above the chutah sikr? Mean you did the malika above the chutah sikr? The malika makes no difference where you did the malika when it comes to a bird. Remember, chata when it comes to kachim animals has to be in the north. Kachim could be shechted anywhere in the Azara. When it comes to Malika, ha'amar mar, Malika b'chol makam mizbech. You could do it anywhere, on the mizbech, below the mizbech, near the mizbech. You could do it anywhere you want. Elala, that is obviously, you have to do it near the mizbech when you're talking about birds, because you don't take the blood from the bird in a kli and take it to the mizbech. You got to do it right next to the mizbech, either on the mizbech or right next to the mizbech. Ella what? You change azah. And since the seifa, again, the seifa here means the end of the discussion about the chatas of the first part of our Mishnah, right? So that's probably what you changed over here. And that would go according to everybody. Even the rabbis would say, the Rabbanan and Rav Elazar Shimon disagree whether a chatas, if you did two simanim, is it puzzle? According to the rabbis, according to Rav Elazar Shimon, it's okay. But by azah, everybody's moda, that if it's a chatas and you didn't sprinkle, You weren't Yotzei. So since the Sefer says all, this Rishon also does all. In other words, when you said the Chatos bird, you did Kamaisa Ola, you did it without the sprinkling, just with the Mitzui. Says Media, who says just because the Sefer is the change there was the Hazah, the change there was the Hazah. When you said you did it above the Chot HaSikra, we were talking about the sprinkling. So the ratio which is talking about when you change the procedure, the Sefer was talking about where you did the sprinkling, above the Chot HaSikra instead of below. And the ratio also talking about sprinkling, in the sense that you skipped the procedure of sprinkling, you went straight to the mitzui, which would invalidate it. That's media. Who says that the ratio and Sefer are both talking about the same thing? Hakadisa. Could be the ratio speaking about you change the malika, and then Hanami doesn't go like Rav Lezer Shimon. In other words, the chatas you're only supposed to do one simon. If you did two simonim, it's possible, going like Rabbanan. And the Sefer speaking about you change the place of the hazah.
You make a mistake on the cutting the two instead of one with the chatas.
Right.
It's still okay according to the. It's still okay.
According to Rav Lezer Shimon, it's okay. According to Rabbanan, we go like Rabbanan, it's puzzle.
But everybody is either special if we do something else. In order to change that, it's then.
That's right. That's right.
So for the cutting, for
Right.
the speaker, if you can get away with making that mistake. But for
According to Rav Lezer Shimon, yes. Yes, but you can't get away with it if you sprinkle it in the wrong spot. Right. Everybody agrees in terms of the sprinkling. Machlokas is only when the cutting, when you sever the two simanim. Lezer Shimon says it's okay, and the Rabbanan say it's not okay. That was the Rabbanan, the Mishnah back on Samach Dam Beis. It said that hivdul b'chatas, if you separated, meaning you severed both simanim on a chatas, and you didn't do it by an ola, that's possible. That's the Rabbanan shita. Okay. Next part of the Gemara. Now we're talking about the Ola Sa'of. We're talking about the second part of the Mishnah. Remember, Ola Sa'of, you're supposed to do above the Chot HaSikra, like as we said yesterday, the Mishnah described yesterday. What do you do with Ola Sa'of? You go up on the ramp. You go up either on the ledge and do the procedure there because the dam has to be above the Chot HaSikra, or according to when should you do it on top of the Mizbeach, totally. Okay, so that's on the Mizbeach, and you cut both simanim. So Ola Sa'of she'asal l'mala b'kaisa Ola shem Ola k'sheira. If you did it with a kavana l'shem chatas, it's kosher. You had it with shalom lishma. You did a chatas, it's kosher, but the bomb's not yotzei. Okay, when is it puzzle? When you had an Ola Sa'of, what ruins the puzzle? What disqualifies the Ola Sa'of, the mistake that you made? If you did it like a ma'isa chatos, which presumably means one simon. You only did one simon, right? You did it for a kavan of shemol bechas, or you did it even like kavan of chatas, but you did it. The key is the procedure was wrong. You did the procedure of chatas on an ola. Says the Gemara now at the two dots, ola sa'of, the shanimai. Now, what was the procedure? What did you change in the procedure here with the ola sa'of? Ilema deshani b'malika. If you change the malika, meaning what? Instead of two, it's an ola bird. You're supposed to do two. You did one. So miniktani seifa or diktani seifa. The next Mishnah, in the Mishnayos, this is all a little bit confused. And the Shiti brings out that the next Mishnah we're going to have in a few lines is really part of the first Mishnah, but it says over there, you could read it all as one long Mishnah, but it says in the Seif, now he calls this a Seifa, Kulan Eimatam Beisabliya Umol Behem. What does that mean? All the psum that we talked about, if you messed up the procedure, let's say according to Rabbanan, you did one instead of two, or two instead of one, or you didn't do all these things, the point is that it's still not an avela. The malika helps to some degree, meaning you have this by an animal too. Remember, an animal that died without shechita is called an avela, right? 99% of the non-kosher hamburgers in America, or the meat, whatever it is an avela. What does that mean? The animal died without shechita, right? That's what you're eating. You're not really, we say it's treif, you can't eat treif. Treifa means an animal that's going to not live out the year. It has some mortal wound. That's really what a treifa is. We call everything treif. Really, it's nevela, meat, right? Okay. A nevela is an animal that died without shechita, and it's matamayu. If you touch it, if you carry it, it's matamayu. A bird that died without shechita, nevela sa'of, is only matamayu when it's in your throat. That's how Allah has learned out of psukim. That's learned on your throat, and it's matamayu, your clothes, anything you touch, not if you touch another person, but it's matame anything only with basically it's called nevelis of tahor. Only a kosher bird, not a non-kosher bird. That's a special halacha. So he says over here, these birds that we're talking about, which are kosher birds, even though you messed up the procedure, you did one instead of two, two instead of one, the dam in the wrong place. But you know what? The malika is still effective in the sense that in the sense that it's not an avela. It's like if you shechted a kosher animal and you messed it up inside, you messed up the shechita. Okay, so in certain cases it's still an avela. It depends on how you messed it up, but it could be that the shechita takes it out of being an avela. In other words, it's a matarit that it's not avela. Here, the shechita, the malika. See, don't forget, everybody agrees that when it comes to the bird, severing one of the two simanim is enough to kill it. When it comes to an animal, we say, unless you sever both simanim, it's not really dead yet. When it comes to a bird, which is a smaller animal, has less life in it, whatever you want to call that, less power, one siman is enough to kill it. But by an ol, it's a special halacha. You got to do two simanim, even though it's really dead with the first one. So here, basically, if you did the malika, even if you did malika properly on one siman, okay, so the malika is effective enough that it's not an avela now. Okay, so he says the Mishnah. I'm reading from the beginning of the Mishnah, but it's the Gemara just quoted it. It says v'kulan eimet tam beisabliya. It's not an avela. Umolan behen. There's still meila. Where's meila? Meila means misuse of something which is kachim, sacrilege. You committed something. What do you have to do if you were mol behektish? You had an off from hektish. You have to bring a carbon asham meilas. You have to bring an asham, and you have to pay at 25%. You got to pay for it. Now, when are you moel? Kachim, you're moel. If it's kachim, you're moel in it as soon as it's kachim. Chatos and ol, you moel right away. Kachim kalim, you're only moel in the emurim. That's because the emurim of kachim kalim animals is considered kachim. So you're only moel in the emurim and only after the zrika. Special halacha. But over here it says umol in the hen because it's still kachim. It's still kachim. So in other words, you're not moel. Let's say a chatos animal. You bring a chatos animal. You did shchita kabbalah zrika. Now what happens? You put the emurim on the mizbeach, right? And the kohen can eat the meat. As soon as the kohen can eat the meat, there's no meila in the meat anymore because it's mutter for the kohen to eat. There's no meila. They're entitled to eat it. So mol and behen is these were kachim that never really had a shas heter because all these things that are puzzle means you can't eat it, right? So you're still mol in them. Chutz michatas of all these things that we said in the Mishnah, you're mol in them. Everything in the Mishnah, whether it's puzzle or not, except for one case. If you bring a chatas bird properly, one siman, below the chut sikra, you put the blood there, there's no meal there because the kohen can eat the bird now, right? So, and as a kosher bird, a kosher chatas and chatas bird that was brought properly, there's no meal there anymore because the kohen can eat it. An ola, there's always meal because ola nobody gets to eat. It goes on the mizbeach. So if you have any enough from it, you're never entitled to eat it. Okay, so it says umol ben chutz mechatzov. That's what the Mishnah said. Now, also, then the Mishnah goes on. I'm reading from the Mishnah now. Now we'll come back to the Gemara. Reading from the Mishnah. Olas of she'asa lamata kamaisa chatas. An olas of that you did improperly. You bought the down below the chotasika kamaisa chatas shem chatas. Rabbi Lezer says you're still moel because it never had a heter for the kohanim because you did it improperly, right? Rabbi Shua Omer ein moelin ba. Rabbi Shua says, and this is going to be the discussion on tomorrow's Gemara, that if you brought an ola bird, l'shem chatas, kamaisa chatas, and you did it below the chotasika, wow, that's really puzzle. No, Rabbi Shua says, you know what? It became a chatas. The ola bird, you're starting with the same bird, right? The birds all look alike, right? You know, the same birds, they're all the same birds. And you did one siman, you called it an ola, but you did one siman like a chatas, you did it below the chotasika like a chatas, everything like a chatas, it becomes a chatas, right? If it looks like a chatas and acts like a chatas and you process like a chatas, it's a chatas. That's Rabbi Shua's idea. So if that's the case, so that's what Rabbi Shua says, Eimol and Ba. Then we have the discussion, the Mishnah goes on to discuss the dialogue between Belazar and Reb Shimon. Back in our Gemara though, let's go back to the Gemara at the two dots, Olas Ha'of. The Shani B'mai, when the Olas Ha'of, it said if you changed it, in a way, you changed it like you did it like a Maisa Chatas, it's possible. My Ilay with the Shani B'malika, if you change the Malika, right, Diktani, say for like we learn in Sefer Kula, Eimatam basically, Umol and Behen, so you did the Malika wrong, so name it like Rabbi Shua doesn't go like Rabbi Shua. Like Rabbi Shua just said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shua, Homer Amolin, we says Amolin, why? Because Rabbi Shua holds that if you did an Ola bird with one siman, below the chota sikra, like a chatas bird, meaning totally like a chatas, it becomes a chatas, and therefore there's no mila. Yeah.
You gotta burn it.
Huh?
You have to burn it.
No, you don't have to burn it. It becomes a chatas. The kohen gets to eat it. That's Rabbi Shua's opinion. We're going to talk about it. Rabbi Shua's opinion is that it's transmuted from a Ola bird to a Chatas bird.
You get credit for that?
Huh?
You get credit for that?
Well, if the guy had to bring an Ola, he's not Yotze his Ola, right? If he had to bring an Ola, maybe bring another one, but it becomes a Chatas bird. That's what it becomes a Chatas bird. Strange, because Chatas is only for somebody who needed a Chatas. Obviously, the guy didn't need a Chatas. Okay, but it becomes a Chatas. The function is a Chatas. And as a Chatas, the Kohen gets to eat it. So there's no Me'ilah there. So the Gemara says, again, when it's said in our Mishnah that an Ola bird, 2 lines from the bottom of the page in the Gemara, in the Mishnah Amalaf, you bought an Ola bird, Kamaisa Chatas, L'Shem Ola, Kamaisa Chatas, L'Shem Chatas, Psula. But what did you do? When you said over here, Kamaisa Chatas, what did you do? Did you only do one simon? In other words, you changed the procedure for the Malika, right? So if that's the case, and you say it's possible, and the next Mishnah says all these cases you're Moel, but Rabbi Shua says you're not Molen. Name it Lo Rabbi Shua, take Rabbi Shua Amar Ein Molen. He says there's no Mila there, meaning it's a Chatas bird now. It becomes a Chatas bird. It's not simply Patel, Ein Molen, because it's a Chatas bird. So that means that the Mishnah doesn't go like Rabbi Shua. Well, so what? In the next Mishnah, we say that Rabbi Shua argues about this case. But we're trying to say then, if that's the case, then the first Mishnah doesn't go like Rabbi Shua. And as we're going to see, the Gemara would rather say that the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Shua, because Rabbi Lazar, his disputant, was put in Chayra. And you don't want to say it comes like a person that goes to Chayim, because he might follow other things that he did. He was a Shmuti, what's called Shmuti. Some say it's Meshamai, but the Pashim Pshat Shmuti is that he was put in Chayim because of a dispute that they had. Ve'ela b'mitzui. Okay, again, the Mishnah just said that if you did an Ola bird with the procedure of the Chatas bird. So if the procedure that you're talking about is 1 simon instead of 2, so the Mishnah will not come out like Rabbi Yeshua, because Rabbi Yeshua says you're not moral there, because it becomes like a Chatas and it wouldn't be puzzle. Vela b'mitzui, maybe what it means is you change the procedure of the mitzui, meaning that you, instead of doing the mitzui, which is what Ola did, you did sprinkling. Ela b'mitzui. Says Rashi, right around where we are here. Ela b'mitzui, right a little bit below where we are in Rashi, about halfway down the page. Well, a Pogrom Sure doesn't argue there. In other words, instead of just doing mitzui, you did the zrika, which is the action of the chatas. Ela b'mitzui, ema seifa. That's the case. Look at the seifa, right? Look at the seifa again. The next Mishnah. You did it below the Zchut HaSikra instead of above, meaning you did like a chatas, the shem chatas. Rabbi Lezer Molenba, Rabbi Shua Ein Molenba. Right now, what did you change there in the next Mishnah when it says what did you change there? The Shani B'mai Ilay Mabim Mitzui. If you change the Mitzui, where did Rabbi Shua say that there's no Me'ilah there? Why? Because it becomes a Chatas. That's on Rabbi Shua, the Shani Malika, if you change the Malika. But Mitzui Miyamar. But did he say that if you change the ofen of the Mitzui, meaning that you did you did the Zrika alone instead of you did the Zrika instead of just doing the Mitzui, did he say there that it also is not that it becomes a Chatas? He didn't say that. He only said that it becomes a Chatas when you did one simon of the Malika. But if you changed the Mitzui, he didn't say that. So therefore, what do you want to say? That in the next Mishnah, that if you change the Mitzui and the Sefer, the Mishnah says there, also if you did like the mice of the Chatas, Rabbi Shua says, what did you change there? It can't be the Mitzui, because Rabbi Shua doesn't disagree when you change the Mitzui. When you change the Mitzui, meaning you did this Rika instead of the Mitzui, like a Chatas, he's motive that it's no good. Hey, Rabbi Shua, the Shani B'Malika, Mitzui Yamar, Vela B'Malika. So therefore, the next mission is changing on Malika. So what are we saying? At the top of this page in Amid Beis, we said, by the Chatas bird, what did you change? You changed it. Malika, well, that doesn't go like Rav Shimon. Okay, so it doesn't go like Rav Shimon. So maybe the change was their Malika. Then, when you talk about the Ola at the end of the previous Mishnah, the Mishnah Amar Aleph, we're saying now, what did you change there? You changed the Mitzui. Why? Because if you change the Malika, then it wouldn't come out like Rabbi Yeshua, and we would prefer that it does come out like Rabbi Yeshua. So the first part of the Mishnah, you change the Malika. The second part of the Mishnah, you change the Mitzui. Now the next Mishnah, which is like a Seifa of this Mishnah, again, you changed what? The Malika. Because if it was the Mitzui, Rabbi Shua wouldn't disagree. So Reisha v'Sefer Melikum and Tziyasim Mitzvah. Does it make sense to say that the beginning, in other words, if you see it as all as one Mishnah, the beginning and the end, the beginning of the Mishnah that we started with today, the beginning of the parak, is talking about the change was, the deviation was Malika. And the Seifa, meaning the next Mishnah, which we're going to see right below here on Amid Beis, the change was Malika. And the middle, meaning by the Ola, the change was Mitzvah. Does it make sense to say that when you change the procedure, you deviated from the normal procedure? When you said Kamaisa, the first time you meant the Malika. When you said Kamaisa the second time, you meant the Mitzui. And when you said Kamaisa the third time, you meant the Malika. Does that make sense? Is aim. Reisha v'Sefer Malika Mitziyasam Mitzui. The Reisha and Sefer, the deviation was, there's different deviations. The first and the third word deviation was the Malika, where you did one instead of two, or two instead of one. And in the middle case, where the Ola, the change of the Ola, where you did the Ola with a procedure of the Chatos, the change was in the Mitzui. Rashi says a couple of places, that El Mitzui. You change the order of Jesus. And Rashi, right before the Mishnah on this page, says Mitziyasa b'mitzui, the Tukim Rabbi Yeshua. We'd rather say Kosek Yeshua, Mishum del Reza Shmusi, because Rabbi Lezer had been put in Chayrim, so we prefer to say that it doesn't go like Rabbi Yeshua. You could have just said that they're all speaking about a deviation in the way of the Malika, that you did one instead of two and two instead of one. And it would all come out, but that would only come out like Rabbi Lezer, not like Rabbi Yeshua. We prefer to say it comes out like Rabbi Yeshua. So let's see now the Mishnah again on Amid Beis, which we already saw the beginning of it before. All these deviations, which invalidate it, it still does not make it an avela. The Malika helped to make it it's kosher in the sense that it's not an avela. It's not an avela. If you eat it, you're not over for an avela, but it's still, you can't eat it anyway because but there's still me'ila, because if it's an ola bird, you're always more in an ola bird until you process it. And if it's puzzle, you don't puzzle in it. You don't process it anymore. You don't burn it on the mizbeach. So there'd be me'ila there. And if it's a chatas, it was never mutter for the kohanim to eat because it was puzzle. And in all these cases where it's puzzle, except for where it's kosher, where you did a chatas oath properly, below the chutas circuit, kamaisa chatas, shem chatas, then there's no me'ila because the kohen can eat it now. Olas oaf she'asa lamata kamaisa chatas, olas oaf, that what you did below the chutas circuit improperly, like a chatas, l'shem chatas, and we said, what do you change over here? You only did one simon. Rabbi Lezer Omer Molenba, says you're still Molenba. Rabbi Shua says, "Ein Molenba," because it became a chatas now, as we'll see. Omer Rabbi Lezer. So now we have a dialogue with Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua. Omer Rabbi Lezer. Stam Rabbi Lezer ben Hirkas. It's Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Lezer ben Hirkas, not Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer says like this: Umayim chatas. Listen to this: a chatas she'ein molenba lishma. A chatas, if you did it lishma, there's no me'ila there. Kshashina shma, when you did shalo lishma, you did a chatas for any other animal, like we saw in Daf Beis and Aleph, and like we've said over here as well. Molenba, right? Kshashina shma, molenba, you're mole there. Why? Because it's never been mutter, right? Even it's never been mutter. Kshashina shma your moba. Ola shemolenba lishma, where your moel, even if you did it lishma, there's certainly your mole lishma. Kshashina shma, and it didn't shema, there certainly should be mole there too. So why do you say that the achatas, which aimon ba, if you did it lishma, there's no mila because the kohen can eat it now. But when you did it improperly and it's puzzle, there is mila there because it was never mutav the kohanim. An ola, which is there's always mila there lishma. So when you change the name, certainly there should be certainly there should be mila there too. Maybe shua lo. When you change the chatas l'shem ola, you change a chatas to an ola where there's always meila. An ola, there's always meila because it's never mutter for a person to eat. Tomer ba'ola, shishina shmol l'shem chatas, but an ola bird now, which you change to a chatas, shekain shina shmol l'davar she'ein bo meila. That's why there's no meila, because you changed its name to something that has no meila, a chatas, which is mutter for the kohen to eat, and therefore there's no meila there. That's Rabbi Shua's far. He's arguing against Rabbi Lezer's Kal V'chomer. Omer Rabbi Lezer. So I'll tell you a different Kal V'chomer. Avrei kachim sheshachten bedarim. Kachim shachtim, which you shechted in the south of the Azara, which is puzzle. V'shachn l'shem kashamayim shech l'shem kach kalam yochichu. You could answer their way. Shekain shina es shemam. This is like an answer on that. Shekain shishim l'davar she'ein b'mila. You changed it from kachim. Your argument is that your Rabbi Shua's argument is that when you change the Olu L'Shem Chatas, you change it to something there's no Mila. So that's why I say there's no Mila. Well, look at Kachay Kachim, which you shechted L'Shem Kachim Kalim in the south, right? Shekain Shines Shemam L'Davar Shem Bo Mila. You shechted to something, you change it to something which there's no Mila, because Kachim Kalim there's no Mila. Umolim Ben, you're still moling it. So even since it's originally Kachay Kachim, and you change it to something which is Kachay Kalim, which is no Mila, still you're moling them. So you can't ask me kasha on Ola. Even though you change the Ola bird to a Chatas bird to something where there is no Mila, you should still be mole in the original bird because it's basically still an Ola. Lo. Imam b'kachay kachim sheshachim medarim kachshachim which you shechim south shechim l'shem kachim kalam shekein shines shmam l'davar sheish bo iser v'heter. It's not that kachim kalam have no Mila. We said that. I said at the beginning of this year that kachim kalam have no Meila in the meat or anything else, but in the emurim there is, because the emurim is always considered kachay kachim. Rashi says it over here too. Isser emurim yesh the fourth line of Rashi. The emurim of the kachim kalim are kachay kachim, and therefore there is momila. There's isser v'heter. There's isser is the emurim, and the heter is the meat, right? Whereas Tomer ba'ola sheshina shma l'davar shekula heter. But when you change an ola bird, and again, when you did an ola bird, our case, you change it to a chatas bird by doing it with one simon, and by doing it like the maisa of a chatas below the chatas sikra, the whole bird is mutter. There is no imurim. There are no fatty parts. There's no like the kidneys and the lobe over the liver and the stuff that's burnt by an animal on the mizbeach. By birds, you don't have that. All you have is the malika. You have the sprinkling of the blood, two different forms, chatas and ola. They're different, and where you sprinkle the blood, but there's no imurim on the mizbeach. So when you change it for a chatas, the chatas is totally eaten. The kohen can eat the whole bird after you did the malika and you did the sprinkling and you did the squeezing of the blood of the chatas. The whole bird is totally eaten. So therefore, there's no meila there at all. Whereas the case that Rabbi Lazar pointed, kachim animals that you shechted in the south, l'shem kachim kalim, where you say over there, you change the name davar shem bo meila, right? Kachim kalim meila, and you're still moel in the original animal. No, it's not true. You didn't change it to something that has no meila. There's no meila in the meat. But there is meila in the emurim, which are kachay kachim, so therefore it's not a perfect example. All right, the brisa goes on. We'll see this tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, that Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yeshua continue their discussion. The Gemara says right at the beginning, we have a couple minutes. Tanya Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yeshua. Ashim sheshachtu b'tzafim l'shem shlam yochir. Look at it, Ashim that you shechtu l'shem shlamim. Sheshina shmo, you change his name. Umol, you still mol in them. If you did an Ashim l'shem shlamim. So he said, no, Ashim is different because you didn't change its place. You're still in the Tzafin and Andarm. So they go back and forth with these logical discussions, but that's what they maintain. Rabbi Lezer says there is Me'ilah here. Rabbi Shua says no, that the Ola bird that you did, the Shem Chatas, with the process of the Chatas, becomes a Chatas itself. All right, we'll pick him here from the Gemara tomorrow, Mitzvah. Have a good day.